All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining for City and State's discussion of a post-COVID Staten Island, what we've learned and what does the future look like. I think we're live, and I'm just going to keep on rocking with it. I am Jeff Colton, senior reporter at City and State, and it's my pleasure to finally come around to the Staten Island event. We have done all other 4 boroughs, and we're saving last but certainly not least. I mean, really, every year we've done a Staten Island issue of City and State every year for probably the past 5 years now, maybe even 6 or 7 at this point. And it's truly always my favorite event because so much of the borough's political scene shows up, usually at the Hilton Garden Inn. This time, of course, we will have to do it remotely, but I'm making do. And you know, Staten Island has a special place in my heart. I may not live in the borough, but one year I brought probably a couple dozen friends out to a Staten Island Yankees game. We took the ferry. I love Staten Island. I'm all about it. But of course, I don't compare to our 3 elected officials that we have joining us tonight. We got Councilmember Joe Borelli, Borough President Jimmy Oddo, and Assemblymember Charles Fall. And we'll be getting around to them momentarily. But first, I really want to thank our sponsors tonight, TD Bank, Northwell Health, the Richmond University Medical Center, and Casandra Properties. Thank you all for your continued support of City and State and really the whole county of Richmond and borough of Staten Island. So with that, let me turn to our elected officials, those you've come to hear to see. And I'm going to start out with a question that I've asked the elected officials from every borough, in particular, in under 1 minute. So keep it brief to start. But I'm hoping you can introduce yourselves, and in this moment of global pandemic and a struggling economy, give me one reason for optimism about the future of Staten Island. One reason for optimism. And I will start with Borough President Oddo.
Good evening. My name is Jimmy Oddo. For the last 6 years and 11 months, I've been the Borough President of Staten Island. Before that, I was in the City Council for 14 years. I have 407 days remaining in my tenure as an elected official. I actually have an app, not that anyone is counting. And I'm just trying to finish strong with my integrity intact, trying to use the political capital I've built up to be able to do what I think is the right thing and let the chips fall where they may. Want to just try to exhaust every moment, do the right thing by this borough, kind of lean into the friendships I've made, continue to learn my craft, continue as a leader, hopefully to lift the folks that are in my charge, lift them and let them grow. And I'll give you 2 reasons for optimism, one in the short term and one in the longer term. Short term is that Staten Island, for all our warts, we're at our best when we're really up against it, post Sandy, post 9/11. And I think we will rise to the occasion again. And longer term, there's great leadership, great young leaders in this borough, including my 2 colleagues and friends and co-panelists who are ready to take the mantle when the old guys like me move on to greener pastures. So good times are looming in the headlights.
All right, thank you. Moving on to City Councilman Joe Borelli. Introduce yourself and give us a reason for optimism.
Jeff, audience, I'm Joe Borelli. I'm the city councilman from the 51st District, the South Shore of Staten Island. I was in the state legislature before that. So I am optimistic because more people than ever are excited for the fact of Staten Island seceding from the city of New York. This is something that subsided for quite a long time, but has emerged as a serious issue that hopefully politicos around the state and city actually take for, with sincere appreciation that it may actually happen. I mean, we have today the Staten Island Economic Development Corporation, willing to be sort of vehicle for that to happen. We have the Staten Island Chamber of Commerce going to their executive board to try to see if that will be an option going forward as far as their organization being a part of this. And we have every elected official, except for one, admitting that this is something that we should be looking at. And I'm not saying everyone's supporting secession, but everyone, at least sign a letter, but everyone said that they are supporting the idea that this is something that we should study. So I'm optimistic for a mayoral race between Councilmember Joe Borelli and Assemblymember Charles Fall, and may the best person win. But if there's one thing we all agree on, that Staten Island would be better served, whether it's me or Charles Fall or Diane Savino or Mike Cusick, or really any other Democrat that actually lives, works, and breathes in this borough, we would be better off than the current situation.
I love that we just turned this into a mayoral debate. So I will, Assemblyman, thank you for announcing your candidacy for Mayor of Staten Island, but I'll turn it over to you to give us a reason for optimism.
Thank you, Jeff. Everybody, how you doing? I'm Assemblyman Charles Fall, and I represent the North Shore of Staten Island. And it's also good to see my colleagues in government, Borough President Oddo, Councilmember Joe Borelli. Hope you guys are doing well. I want to start out really by first congratulating everyone that made the Power 100 list, but also send a special shout out to those that deliver for our community that did not make the list. So we know who you are, and you are appreciated. And Jeff, I would also argue that we may need a Power 500 list for Staten Island next time, because we do have a lot of people that do great work out here. It's been such an honor to represent the community I grew up in. I've always called home, and to be in a position to listen to the needs of my constituents and stakeholders and turn those concerns into laws that not only affect Staten Island, but the entire state. And that's a big honor. And the reason why I'm personally optimistic about the future of Staten Island during this period is because we have faced several hardships in the past, like the borough president and council member mentioned. And I feel like by doing our individual parts, we will overcome this crisis. I feel like we did it in the beginning of the year, and we could do it during the second wave. And I really want to give a special shout out to our borough president, because when this pandemic hit, he called on all the elected officials to meet at Borough Hall in the very beginning, started a texting thread so we could work very closely during this period. And because of that, I remember when the city MD up the block closed, we were able to get it open pretty quickly, and we also got legislation passed so that does not happen again. So I want to thank you for your leadership, and I look forward to a good discussion tonight.
Thank you, and also thank you for the reminder. All of you that are watching, please, I hope you already checked out the Staten Island Power 100. If not, then we have a link in the chat right now, the Zoom. So check out our Power 100. It's Staten Island's 100 most powerful politicians and just everybody involved in politics and government. It's really a great list that we do every year. And also reminder for anybody watching, we're going to take some questions from the audience at the end. So Zoom has a chat or a Q&A function and a chat function, but the Q&A function, please use that for questions. And even if you don't have a question yourself, check out the Q&A, give an upvote to your favorite questions, and we'll try and get around to those at the end. But first, a question from me, and it's kind of unavoidable right now. Coronavirus numbers are rising across the city, across the state, and really across the country lately. But Staten Island has been a particular hotspot. So I'll start with the borough president here, but I want to hear from all of you. What can be done, particularly by the government at this point, to get those numbers down? And, also what are the concerns broadly about this latest uptick and whether it's a second wave? So, Borough President, please.
The first thing I'd like to say is that the great thing about a Staten Island mayoral race between Borelli and Fall is I become the deputy mayor for operations regardless. So my only challenge is living that long. So that's why I'm on the treadmill and lifting weights at 5:30 in the morning. On the COVID front, yeah, listen, the numbers are troubling. And the numbers are troubling because it's a snapshot in time today, but it's also like, okay, are we on that ascension, and exactly how high up is it going to go? Are we going to get to those unfortunate levels of March and April? Staten Islanders are a mobile community because we are a car-oriented community, because the government never got around to giving us any mass transit. So we are back to being 100% mobile. So we're all over the island, and because we have 3 bridges and we are so close to New Jersey, you know, much of Joe's council district is closer to New Jersey than it is to Manhattan, if not all of it. We spend a lot of time in Jersey, and those numbers obviously have been higher than ours. So I think that there is reason for concern, and there's reason to remind the public to choose to engage in those steps that the medical and science experts say we should be taking. That's, you know, wear the mask, socially distance, be smart about who you spend time with indoors, and let's be wise going into the holiday season. I think that's sound advice. I will say that the city has responded immediately. You know, they sent 75 ambassadors into the island. We set up rapid testing at the Staten Island ferry and a few different shopping plazas all over the island. And our old friend Vinny Ignazio was able to agree to setting up rapid testing at Mount Loretto and Joe's district. We just need to do the core 4+ and be smart, use some common sense, and let's get through this, hopefully without further restrictions on our liberties.
Thank you. And hey, speaking of restrictions on liberties, Councilman Borelli would like to hear from you on this one, and you know, what the government needs to do, if any role, to get these numbers under control.
Look, the government has a role. I mean, and I think the City Hall administration deserves credit for setting up rapid and regular PCR testing in my district, in Charles's district, and all over the island. I got tested probably twice in the past 10 days and never had to wait more than 15 minutes. It bothers me because I see people at City MD waiting in line for like 2 hours when they don't realize that the city site is just down the block and it's free and the results come very quickly. But that's neither here nor there. People have to take a lot of part of this into their own hands. They have to wear masks. They have to use social distancing measures. They have to change their behavior slightly. They have to wash their hands. As Jimmy said, the core 4. What I'm afraid of is that we are going to rush too quickly into a lockdown. And some of the businesses that have locked down in the past have every right to not be trusting of what Mayor de Blasio and Governor Cuomo said. If you look at other states, right, every state essentially had some form of a lockdown, though there was different degrees. You saw governors around the country make every effort, and a really earnest effort, to reopen their states and reopen their cities as quickly and safely as possible. That did not occur here. That did not happen. There's no way we could describe that as happening. So when you're a business owner and you're seeing the looming lockdown that might happen, you have every right to panic. You have every right to be afraid, and you have every right to oppose that policy. I just think it's too easy for people like Mayor de Blasio and Governor Cuomo, who live in a mansion at our expense with cooks and servants and their families. They never had to go without a paycheck. They never had to go into their savings. They never had to dip into their pockets, their children's college funds, to keep their business open or to pay their mortgage. I think it's too easy for that guy, you know, up at Gracie Mansion or on Eagle Street to be barking orders at all of us without thinking through the ramifications that happen. Also, the city and state are in a financial calamity right now. I mean, there's no way to underscore that. And the lockdown affects that. The city and state are the 8.75% partner on every transaction of business that happens in this city. And if the cash registers aren't humming, City Hall's not getting any of that revenue. If the hotel taxes aren't being swiped at the hotel front desk, we're not getting that revenue. And we're not getting the revenue, of course, from a whole host of things during the pandemic, but those are sort of the most immediate revenue sources and rolling revenue sources the city has. So these are problems that can't be downplayed while we just have the knee-jerk reaction to lock everything down, shut down businesses, and the hell with everyone else. And those are my concerns. And as far as Thanksgiving, look, I mean, you know, I guess I made a lot of news by my tweet. I never meant for it to go viral, obviously, but it's easy for people to just have a knee-jerk reaction and say I'm an ass, which is fine. I don't really care very much what people think of me, as Jimmy and probably Charles can attest. But the law was written without good faith, without any nuance, without any reality in mind. I mean, even our restaurants, when we have restaurants, we close capacity based on area and square footage. There's no such rule with houses. there's no such room for nuance. My family's 11 people, right? Your family might be 15, someone else's family might be 3. And it's fundamentally unfair if these are the people that you're interacting every day. Between my kids and my niece, my family is rotating in and out of all of our houses every single day of our lives. So to say that we're being reckless or crazy for having everyone again at the same house on November 26th, it just doesn't reflect the reality of the implication of the law. And, even the mayor came out yesterday and said that there's going to be no enforcement of this. And the NYPD, other sheriffs around the state are not going to enforce it. So the other factor of this is that when you make a rule and you act all tough, barking orders again from Gracie Mansion or Eagle Street, and you can't enforce the rule, it makes all of your rules seem kind of silly. So, I mean, I would have appreciated a guideline, a recommendation. I mean, my family actually declined doing a larger gathering on Long Island with some extended family. But when you make a law that is not really a law, when you make a rule that is not nuanced enough to be applicable to everyone, people aren't going to follow it in the first place. And it makes the rest of the rules that might be equally, if not more important, it calls them into question as well. Sorry for my rant.
Speaking of rules, let me cut you off there by all means. Yeah, I'm just stuck at, man, wait, your family's 11 people, all that hubbub over breaking the 10 limit rule for 11 people? I thought it was going to be like a 25 person or something.
No, it's 11 people. Sometimes it's 12, but I don't think we're having the 12th. I see someone, Richard Gerard. Joe lives pretty god, belongs to a restrictive pool club. My pool club's open to anyone who pays the fee. And please, by all means, we need members. We're going to go out of business if we don't go members. So Richard Gerard, I will sponsor
Speaking
you.
of which, for anybody making comments, please, I see some of them are going just to the panelists. Make that to everybody. Let's get the conversation going in the chat there. So there's one you can switch from panelists to everybody. That way everybody can read about how exclusive, whether or not it is exclusive in the pool club. So sorry with that, Assemblyman Fall, please, talking about the higher coronavirus rates on Staten Island, what can be done, what should be done.
Yeah, so to add to what's already been said, I think we just got to continue to remind people that we've lost so many Staten Islanders as a result of this virus and across the state, a lot of New Yorkers. And this needs to be taken incredibly seriously, and we all have a part to play here, our individual parts. If we're out in public, we have to wear a mask. We have to remain socially distant. There are stores that I go into in my district and some people still aren't wearing masks, and, I've seen some situations where the owner and folks get into it because they don't want to wear a mask, so I feel like the best thing we got to do right now is just really strongly encourage people to get tested. I really want to commend the mayor and governor for putting these rapid testing sites in our district. But I think we at the end of the day have to do our individual parts, and we cannot forget our small businesses that are hurting. We're definitely gonna need some federal help here. That's critical to make sure that our businesses don't shut down.
I was going to save the audience questions till the end, but actually there was a really good point. School closings. I mean, look, I know that is the story of the day. So I'd like to just go around all three of you briefly and see, do you think that all public school buildings should be closed right now? And maybe I'll just leave it at that. I know that we could go on and on about how, government has handled this issue overall. So Borough President Oddo, should schools be closed and confirm what is the situation for public schools on the island?
No, they shouldn't be closed today, although this decision by the mayor probably becomes moot in a matter of days if the governor does designate New York City as a whole as an orange zone and beyond. I think that the chancellor said the positivity rate within the school is 0.19. And I think that when the mayor and the education stakeholders made their arrangement and agreed upon 3%, they never envisioned that the positivity rate outside of schools in the community would be a lot higher than inside. And they probably agreed to a percentage that they believed would in fact warrant closing the schools. But the way this virus has thrown us a curveball again, the percentages are incredibly low in school. I'm shocked at that level. So if you're going strictly by the science, the answer is no, they shouldn't be. When you add the science layered on top of that, the politics and just the reality of getting agreement in a city like New York, this is why you have a decision made at this time. Why we can't get those same stakeholders around a table again to recognize this unexpected truth of 0.19% inside schools and the number outside school going higher. I don't get it. But again, sadly, I think this is all going to be moot in a few days, because I think the number is going to trigger the governor imposing a different level of restrictions on the city.
Right. It's a lot of communications that have been coming in and contradicting. It's been difficult. We'll switch up the order briefly. Assemblyman, do you think that the public school buildings in New York City should be closed at this time?
I think it should be done on a case-by-case basis. I do, from experience, my daughter actually had to quarantine because, she possibly was exposed, but thank God she's okay. And her whole school had to shut down, So I know there are many parents out here that are very concerned about this case, but I think it should definitely be on a case-by-case basis. And, that whole idea of one shoe fits all, I think doesn't apply here. I think we got to, look at the numbers, and in certain areas it's very low and they should be open in those areas. But in areas where it is a high concern, they should be closed.
And Councilman, should schools be closed? And also, just briefly, has the city council had any input on this, or has this purely been a mayor?
Yeah, Mark Traeger, the education chair, has a good plan, and he and I talked quite a bit about it because it duplicates what I've been saying for months, that the city of Dallas is doing a much better job. It's probably the largest, that in Miami are probably the largest city school districts that are fairly reopened fully. And by fully, they're reopened for the 65% or so of kids that choose to come back. There's still a remote option for those who did. Let's talk about what we are doing. Since May or June, there hasn't been any medical journal published peer-reviewed science that says schools are more dangerous than the surrounding communities that they're located in. There just isn't. There hasn't been one. There hasn't been one from any country. So that's why when we say follow the science on the schools is pretty consistent, and it indicates that schools aren't that dangerous. This is the opinion shared by the New York Times, the New York Post, Democrats, Republicans, across the board. And it's only here in New York City where we've pulled this 3% number completely out of our ass that we're going to follow now, that we've basically boxed ourselves into because we made a deal with the unions to do so, that we're going to follow that. Now let's talk about what we lost, right? So our students right now are losing a year almost of in-person learning. That is incredibly detrimental. So if you want to talk about science, look at all the stuff on early development, and see what we're losing in terms of our students' development. I think it's imperative to do what most school districts are eyeing, big cities, what Mark Traeger wants to do, and that's bring the kids from K through 5 back in first, socially distanced, remote option if they want it, and get kids learning again. It's unfortunate that, look, my son was in pre-K, doing well, has a para, gets speech, gets OT, gets all these services. He was doing well. And we saw, it was before our own eyes, we saw the detriment to his development that happened when he converted to fully remote next year. And it's just incredible that people are just so willing to just give up on schools. Think about it. You have the teachers union now saying that remote education is fine. This is insane. These are people who fought for the critical nature of having a teacher in front of a student, and they touted for years, and the DOE touted for years how important it is to have teachers in front of students, developmentally, socially, educationally, all these things. Now we're just throwing it out the window, and when we ask for the justification, what the medical community is saying, what the scientific community is saying, for specifically schools, there just is no reason. So it's getting really frustrating as a parent. It's getting really frustrating as a legislature. And that's why Friday we'll be in court. We already have a lawsuit to reopen schools. We'll be in court on Friday, filing a motion. We'll have a hearing, I think, within the next 10 days or so. And I'm not going to let this go. If people oppose me and people don't think I should be fighting for schools to be open, my message to you is get out of the way. All right. I don't care. I don't care what people think of me. Tell everyone you know that I'm the one fighting for schools to be open, plain and simple. And with that, I'll stop ranting.
I'll say, I mean, the backlash to this school decision, I mean, it seems that even the education reporters can't keep up with what the latest news is, what the latest changes, and the backlash has definitely been bipartisan. So it's a fascinating issue, and I wish we could get, even a firmer answer on this Zoom, but I think we'll just kind of have to wait and see. I want to switch to politics, though. Of course, Staten Island is always an interesting place when you look at general elections. We saw the congressional seat on the island flip just this month. We saw Donald Trump win with what looks like it's going to be a higher percentage of the vote than he won in 2016. And we also saw I think all the other seats basically stayed the same. An assembly seat, we have a new assembly member, but that's going to stay Republican red. Anyway, a lot of changes. I'm wondering if this does mean, what does mean? Are there political changes on Staten Island? Is the island's political culture changing, or is this just more of the same? And I'll raise that first to the Assemblyman who was just reelected this month. So what's happening here in the political culture?
One, I think the good news, what we're seeing is the amount of voter participation. I think it was incredible across the board on the island, and people getting civically engaged. And this is something I've encouraged, right? So the more people we have involved and engaged, they should hold all elected officials accountable, right? Nothing should be ever taken for granted, and nothing is on promise. We got to work our tails off to win our seats again. But I also think too, this should be an opportunity to work together, regardless of, what your political beliefs are. You shouldn't dismiss somebody because they're a Republican. You shouldn't dismiss them because they're a Democrat. We are one island, we are one borough. We got to come together and, and advocate together so we can make sure that our kids are in a better place, or Staten Island is a better place for our kids.
The borough president, I know you've prided yourself on bipartisanship. Do you think the island is changing politically?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that Staten Island has a healthy two-party system, and the rest of the city should try it. It brings out the best in people. It forces you to elevate your game as an elected official. Mike McMahon brought out the best in me, and I think I brought out the best in Mike McMahon when we were in the city council together. And Staten Island is a rare place, and it gets more rare in that we have two parties who put up candidates who get elected not simply because of an R or a D next to their names. And I think if we had more of that as a city, as a state, we would be better off. I think the people of the city and the people of the state would be better off. I also have to say, to put on my Republican hat, every time in the last 15 years, my friends in the Democratic Party on Staten Island won a seat. Tom Robleski, who we all respect, who was sort of the dean of Staten Island political reporters, would write a story. Joe, you'll remember it, when Tom had the column in the Sunday Advance, or even afterwards, the ascendance of the Democratic Party on Staten Island. They got a beachhead in the South Shore and all this stuff about how it was over for us and I should be getting my resume together. Which, by the way, I have my resume together, because if you didn't hear, I have 407 days left and then I'm unemployed. So here you have a really good day for the Republican Party, but I think it's more foundational than party affiliation. Staten Islanders are, in fact, a law and order community. They turned on their televisions, they watched what they and saw what they saw and were not happy about it. They don't like the change to the criminal justice system that came out of Albany, and that drove a vote. And I would put that issue up against any other issue that people perceive to be on the ballot. And so a lot of first-time voters, I think, as Joe mentioned either earlier or in the previous conversation, will they continue to come out? Will they continue to vote for the Republican Party? I'm not going to overplay that. But I do think that Staten Islanders made a statement, and I think the statement more than anything was the foundation of what a good life on Staten Island is sort of a civilized society that has order and doesn't look the other way to chaos. And I think that's what drove a lot of that vote. Joe?
But yeah, I agree with Jimmy that probably since the Staten Island landfill, Fresh Kill landfill, there hasn't been one issue that drove the vote as much as, you know, the broader bail reform and law and order. But unlike the landfill, the law and order stuff and the problems associated with are identifiable to one party. And I'm not trying to be partisan right now. I'm just saying it is something identifiable with the Democratic Party at this point. And that's why I think you saw a big vote away from the Democrats this cycle towards the Republicans. I have never actually seen the Staten Island electorate as polarized as we have been in the past few years. And I fully acknowledge that I'm, you know, I am someone that could not possibly deny that doesn't, you know, stoke partisanship oftentimes. However, I saw a video of Lindsey Graham giving a fist bump to Kamala Harris the other day, and people getting so mad. Like people got mad that she would even associate with him. People got mad at him for fist bumping him. And that's just so normal in a legislature in general that, like, I was taken back and reflective on how people inside a legislature are not as partisan often as the electorate. And on Staten Island, it's even more so. I mean, you know, I know all of my colleagues, there are 9 of us. I know their families, I know their children. I care about them. You know, I mean, Mike Cusick almost lost, and I'm a Republican, and, you know, it would have been good, I suppose, for the party and all. But I mean, I know Mike's wife and his family, and a part of me wants them to win. I mean, and I'm not afraid to admit that. I'm comfortable enough as a Republican. Trust me, you'll all, you know, hang Trump around my neck if you have to. But I'm comfortable enough as a human to say, like, I care about people like that. And I think that's why we do get some good government on Staten Island, because the questions that involve Staten Island that we all unite on are really more of an us versus them mentality. And it doesn't really matter what party you are or how much you like or hate Trump or whoever. And the other thing is, look, we are a bellwether district. We're more like the rest of the country than the rest of the city. You know, I think we went for Clinton, Bush, Obama twice, Trump once, Trump hard twice. You know, so I think we're people that are perhaps rational explorers of our political options. And that's not a bad thing.
And hey, we've got huge elections coming up next year. In fact, we just had Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams announce his mayoral candidacy today. We have every city council seat up for re-election in 2021. So I wanted to briefly ask our elected officials here, for everybody watching, and, you know, also for myself as a reporter, who are the candidates we should be watching on Staten Island in 2021? Are you supporting anybody for, you know, borough president or city council, or even if you're not, you know, officially supporting them, is there anybody that piques your interest? And I'll start with our city council member. You know, Joe, who's interesting to watch in 2021?
I'm supporting Steve Matteo for borough president. If there's anyone doubting that, I'll say it now for clarity. I'm supporting Steve Matteo for borough president. And, you know, whatever I have to do to get a high turnout on the South Shore. In fact, if you're a liberal and you're listening and you want to run against me, don't hesitate, because I want that matching dollars to be able to spend. I don't really care about you, whoever you are. I want that matching money to drive my constituents out and up. And if you run against me, I'm going to paint you as the Bill de Blasio, Andrew Cuomo incarnate, and my constituents are going to get effing mad. And we're going to come out, and that's all going to help Steve Matteo steamroll whoever his Democratic competition is. I see Charles Paul laughing because he knows it's true. So, I mean,
political consultants, take notes. He's just giving away the strategy just for free.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't need a consultant to come up with that one. But that's the truth. So as far as the mayoral race, you know, as successful as I think will be in the borough president's race here, I'm not as optimistic as the mayoral race. I don't have a candidate yet. I'm hoping one will emerge, and we'll see who it is. I do like some of the Democrats a lot better, not personally, but a lot better than others. I think a few of them have been talking about a lot of meat and potato issues that there is a segment of people, like there is a segment out there who are Democrats and who just don't care about the progressive beauty contest that this might turn into. I think there's people who want their sanitation workers to pick up their garbage, the grass cut in the parks, all the real basic stuff, the service delivery stuff that's important to people. So I'm excited to watch the Democratic primary. I think it'll be fun.
And Assemblyman, you've got a big, busy race. I think there's 7 or 8 candidates, maybe 9. A lot of candidates up in the North Shore City Council seat. Who are you watching in 2021?
I haven't, made any endorsements in that race, but that is a race that I'm paying a very, 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 very close attention to because of how important that seat is. I'm going to be paying attention to every single candidate's agenda, what their plans are for the area, because that and the fact of the matter is I got to work with whoever that person is, and we have to work very well together in order for us to deliver for the North Shore. And as far as the mayor's seat, we're going to need a mayor that listens to Staten Island and delivers for Staten Island, and not delivers for Staten Island what they think Staten Island deserves, but making sure Staten Island gets what Staten Island wants, right? That's a really big thing, and it's going to start, by making sure that they're advocating along with Staten Island to make sure that we still have that residential toll discount, that our infrastructure is improving, that our hospitals get what they deserve. We on Staten Island do not have a public hospital, so we need to make sure that both Rumsey and SIUH, even though they're not in my district, get what a public hospital would get if they were on Staten Island. So I think that's definitely what we're going to need from the next mayor, and someone that's committed, not only to deliver, committing on that on a campaign trail, but actually delivering on that once they become mayor.
I like the way you frame that. Jimmy, to you, who are you watching in 2021? But then also, what should the next mayor, whoever that is, deliver for Staten Island? What are you looking for?
Sure. So candidate that I'm watching for my old council seat is probably going to be a Republican primary, and I'm supporting David Michael Carr, who is the chief of staff to Councilmember Steve Matteo, a really bright, really smart young man who I think will do a great job and live up to the mantle of my mentor and the first council member for that district, John Fusco. In the borough president, for all the talk for Staten Islanders, including in some of the conversation I'm following in chat, if you want less partisanship, if you want less theatrics, if you want someone who's going to focus on meat and potato issues, you want someone who's going to build relationships and get shit done for Staten Island, something that I've tried to do for 6 years, then Steve Matteo is that person. When you're a council member and one of 3, it's one job. When you are the borough president and so much of what you do at Borough Hall is predicated on the whim and the relationship with City Hall, I think this job is perfect for Steve Matteo's mentality. He's a bulldog. He cares about getting stuff done. I think he'd be a great borough president. I see there's a guy, and this is not an endorsement, it's the other party, I don't want to get involved, but I see there's a guy in the chat who I think is an announced candidate, John Macbeth, who politically, and he's already disagreed with me in the chat room, politically we don't agree on a lot, but I think he's just a really decent human being and a great person, and I'm happy to see that's the type of caliber of folks running. As I used to say to Charles Barron, and Charles used to say to me, John, I'll either endorse you or endorse your opponent, whatever helps you more. And lastly, in terms of the mayor's race, what Staten Island always wants is this. They want a seat at the table. We want to be treated fairly. We want to be treated as one of 5. And what we want in our mayor is someone to return to doing the job of delivering core services, because that impacts our lives. To all of the Staten Islanders in the chat room and any of the Staten Islanders out there, I hate to break this news to you, but Charles Fall and Joe Borelli, as good of elected officials as they are, and Jimmy Oddo, we have less of an impact on your lives than city agencies, than deputy commissioners and assistant commissioners.
This is the argument for secession that I try to make.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you got to get a mayor who is going to campaign and then govern on a return to delivering core services. That's how you lift the lives of 9 million New Yorkers. You could be an ideological warrior on the side all you want. You won the election, God bless. But make sure someone's washing the candy store. Make sure someone is doing the most inherent part of the job, and that's delivering services. If we get that, I think Staten Islanders have a fighting chance. And if you have a borough president like Steve Matteo, who knows how to build relationships and focuses on that and doesn't swing at every pitch, regardless of what the folks in the peanut gallery are yelling at you and tweeting at you, then we have a fighting chance. And it's one of the reasons why I think we should have some level of optimism.
All right, secession was mentioned again, and heck, we've got to talk about it. I'm interested. I want to hear, and I'll start with the assemblyman here. Should secession be considered? And obviously, this would be a state issue. You're a representative in Albany. Is there any appetite among the larger city delegation here to let the island go from the 5 boroughs?
Do I really have to start? I asked. Oh. I mean, look, I hear the point on why folks really feel strongly about a secession, but I do strongly think that I don't see how we'll have the revenue stream that we have now under a secession. But I definitely had to have a lengthy conversation with my colleague, Mr. Borelli, about that. But I think most importantly right now, I think that folks on Staten Island are just trying to make sure that we recover from this pandemic, and I haven't really heard much of chat about secession, because the main focus right now is make sure we come together to fight this pandemic.
May I jump in, and then we'll let Joe bat in the third spot?
Of course.
Folks, look at me. I'm 17 years old. Look how this job has aged me. I can't begin to tell you what it's like to be a local elected official dealing with these city agencies. They are not only, many of them, not all of them. Lorraine Grillo is great. James Patchett is great.
And Rick Oddo, she's listening right now. Mention her.
Catherine Garcia was great. But there are agencies in this administration, there were agencies in the Bloomberg administration that don't give a damn about Staten Island. And every day on every issue, it's a fight. When I was a young staffer for John Fusco in the 90s, we had fights. We had fights with the Dinkins administration, Giuliani administration. But it was over the big issues. Today, it's everything. They are more insular. They are more obnoxious. They are more defiant. They're defiant to Bill de Blasio, let alone Jimmy Oddo, Charles Fall, and Joe Borelli. Government is too big. It's too unresponsive. And from my perspective, and I didn't jump on Joe's bandwagon early on this and be the chairman of the committee Joe was putting together. But to me, as a Staten Islander, my position is simple, and I think this should be Staten Islander's position. Let them analyze it. Let's answer the questions, I think the legitimate questions that Charles Fall has and lots of Staten Islanders. How can we pay? Let the process play itself out. Let the academic process play itself out. Let's look at the ledger. Let's look at both sides. And then we can make an educated decision as a community. There's nothing wrong. There's no downside in allowing this process to move forward.
As a reporter, I'm certainly interested in seeing a report on this. I know that there's been some in the past about the revenue, but of course the revenue situation is always changing, and it's certainly changed in the past 8-9 months. But Councilman Borelli, I mean, explain that specifically, the revenue issue. Could Staten Island have enough money on its own?
We'll start with the revenue. So all municipalities, counties, and cities around the country, for the most part, base their revenue projection on how much assessed real estate value they have within their taxable jurisdiction. So we'd be a city of 500,000 people. We'd be the second largest city in the state. We'd be the 37th or so largest city in the United States of America. In 2000, FY19 or so, our total real estate on Staten Island that's taxable was valued at $72 billion. Meaning if we taxed roughly the average of, say, 2% per year, we would be able to get that. We would be able to get that in revenue. Other cities of 500,000 people and big cities, Atlanta, city of Miami, other places, have half, in some cases, the amount of taxable real estate from which they can draw revenue towards paying their bills. So Atlanta, I mean, you can't quote me on this, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Atlanta was something like $44 billion to our 72. The city of Miami was 55 or so to our 72. Indianapolis, a city of 800,000 people, half of our real estate assessment. Buffalo, the second biggest city in the state right now. We have more real estate value than all of Erie County, as a matter of fact. So, I mean, the basis for our revenue and the basis for our issuing bonds, the basis for our using our tax levy to be able to pay for everything is there. And Staten Islanders can elect a progressive government that doesn't want to shrink the size of government and spends a lot of money, and maybe taxes would go up. Staten Island could elect a conservative government that maybe early on doesn't want to expand government, and maybe taxes will go down. But there's no way of answering the second part until we have elections. The first part of whether we have revenue is not going to be a problem. Again, when you factor in the fact that we have an income tax in New York City, if that stays, we have the second highest AMI as a borough of all the boroughs. So we have the foundations for revenue for secession. What do we gain? We gain self-control. So I just saw Amoy Barnes, I mean, a great person involved with politics to as far as one could be, as high as one could be. And she's saying that people on Staten Island don't get their fair share. And she saw it firsthand. Charles Fall, for as good of a job as he does, his one responsibility is voting. He presses a button, yes or no, on a number of issues. I do the same thing. On all the other stuff, we are just lobbyists. We're lobbyists to city agencies. We think the bus lane should go here instead of there. Right? Every other city has municipal leaders that they elect who make the decisions. Should the bus lane go, for example, on First Street or Second Street? Whatever city you live in the United States of America, you elect someone to make that decision. Whether that decision is good or bad, you have recourse. You can elect someone else. You can re-elect them. You can elect someone from a different party. We don't have that because our 7% of the population doesn't amount to a big enough impact on the mayoral race, doesn't amount to a big enough interest in the city council or the state legislative delegation from the city. We don't have the political clout to influence the decision makers who decide every effing thing that Staten Islanders happen. So, I mean, we had the issue of our backyards that Steve Matteo and I had a fight, where City Planning Commission, unelected bureaucrats, decided we're going to just stop permitting Staten Islanders from having a backyard. Well, like, screw you. Like, you're an unelected bureaucrat, and you're going to tell us, the elected officials who actually get elected. Again, I don't have to agree with Charles Fall on everything, but it would be better if Staten Islanders elected Charles Fall to make a decision, and then we can choose whether he gets reelected or not. That goes for every elected official of whatever party. Jeff, in the piece you did about me, I compared to Savannah, right? Savannah, and you fact checked me. I said there was 140,000 people in Savannah. It was 144. But Savannah has 144,000 people. That's maybe 75% of the size of my district. Savannah elects a citywide mayor, 2 citywide aldermen, and you elect one of your district aldermen. You have 4 people that are making decisions, not to mention you have a whole Chatham County legislature too. But forget it. The city of Savannah, you elect 4 people who are responsible for picking the traffic light, where it goes, for picking where we put a speed camera, whether we have speed cameras, whether the school gets funding, X or Y. On Staten Island, we do not have that person who gets to make decisions based on their election from the public. And it's unfortunate that we're just reduced to lobbyists in a city government, but that's just the brass tacks of it. Sorry.
By all means, hey, it's a fascinating conversation. I mean, I know it boy, does it piss people off.
Like, this guy, Richard Girard, is such a moron. If you secede, those taxes disappear.
That is a valued city and state attendee.
No, like the taxes don't disappear. The city of Staten Island would become the taxing authority. Like, how do you not, like, it's tough to argue with you when you're not even on, like, oh, God.
You've never seen the West Wing episode where Josh Lyman had the website, Josh Lemon Lyman, and he participated in the comments section and his
no, I have not.
Don't do it, and he did it, and then it was Lord of the Flies.
I kind of look at these days, so it is what it is.
Man, so anyway, look, secession. I hope we're discussing this again next year. It is. There's a lot going on, and also I just want to say to my editors at City and State, if you want to send me down to Savannah, Georgia, post pandemic to do some research,
yes,
I'll be the first one to sign up and look at a city of that size.
Well played, Jeff. Well played.
And maybe the next mayor can be more attentive to Staten Island. Maybe these issues will be less cogent or something. But that's still 14 months away for the next mayor. Let me say first of all that we are going to get to the baseball question. Want to discuss that last, so Jimmy, hold tight. But I see a lot of questions both in the Q&A and the chat about development on the North Shore. I saw there was an article in the Advance, I think it was today, maybe a couple of days ago, about possibly allowing some taller buildings right there near the ferry terminal. There's of course the new outlet mall. There was plans for a big beautiful wheel that might not be happening. I guess I'll start with the Assemblyman here. This is your district specifically. What are you hoping to see out of the North Shore, out of St. George there? Are you okay with increasing density in certain places, packing in more people, or I'll go right there. I mean, what's your vision for development close to the terminal?
So thank you for that question. I think we got to work to preserve the character of the North Shore and improve the quality of living for native residents as we seek to invest and develop the neighborhoods. I think that proposal of trying to build two buildings that's over 20 stories, I don't think it's right. And I think if we're gonna preserve our communities, our neighborhoods, we have to look at the existing zoning. I also think that, look, I want to see the outlet mall succeed. I wish there was a will there. That doesn't look like that's happening. So the city, needs to really get its act together and do something about that. And I also say, look, the fact that we haven't had a Cromwell for almost 12 years is completely unacceptable. Year after year, people in Staten Island are just tired of hearing from government. It's going to happen next year. We're waiting for this study, we're waiting for that. Meanwhile, other boroughs are getting so many types of different community centers within a year period, and that's wrong and it's not right. So there's no excuse why Cromwell should not be here. Period. End of sentence. And then on top of that, I do feel like we also got to hear from the community. What they want to see, especially not everywhere the will was supposed to be. But the North Shore is something that's near and dear to my heart. This is where I grew up at, and I'm going to make sure that especially with whoever the next council person is, that we have a North Shore that's fair to all. To those that are struggling, to those that that's a teacher, that's a firefighter, that's looking for affordable housing. We have to have a fair Staten Island for every single one of our residents here.
And Borough President, hey, you've got to vote on land use issues. You were in the council. What are your thoughts on the North Shore, that area around Borough Hall?
So the first thing I want to say, just for some sort of overarching context, as I said earlier, I was a member of the City Council representing the Mid-Island for 14, 15 years, and now as Borough President represent Mid-Island, North and South. And I think the 49th Council District seat is as important as any political seat, any elected seat on Staten Island. As important as the Congress seat, as important as the district attorney. I think there are so many challenges and so many opportunities in the 49th District. I think it's that important. The notion that the Department of City Planning is complicit with a private developer to introduce R7 zoning density on Staten Island is outrageous. And this is a city planning, and this is an administration that has forfeited their right to have us have faith that they'll get it done correctly. The Bay Street Corridor was the abomination that some of us warned about. And the notion that we need critical mass of people, and don't worry, we'll give you the infrastructure will come. Just to quote Sting, a Sting lyric, it's a lie we don't believe anymore. 1962, 1963, the bridge went up. Don't worry, the infrastructure's on the way. There are parts of Joe Borelli's district where we're still putting in sanitary lines. And the Bay Street corridor, don't worry about infrastructure. Don't worry about infrastructure. And it's an afterthought. They will do it again. And we are not against growth. We are not against the notion that we need young people and we need to bring in folks and we need to have vitality. But this notion that we should kick the can down the road again on the infrastructure front and accept this density on a whim and a prayer is wrong. I have no faith in the current leadership. This should be decided by the next council member. This should be decided by the next mayor, because it will be built and it will play out underneath those elected officials. So I don't want to see this voted on by the current councilwoman and the current mayor. They forfeited that right with the Bay Street corridor saga. And if you think that you live in Joe Borelli's district and you say, well, I don't care, this is in North Shore, I don't care, it doesn't affect me. Are you kidding me? They are coming for Staten Island. They want to build density. It's the North Shore today. It will be the North Shore again tomorrow, and the Mid-Island and the South Shore. Once they break the seal and they introduce R7, after Staten Island fought so hard years ago to get rid of R6, do not give them an inch. They do not deserve your trust. They have failed the test to date. Let's take our chances with the next administration. Let's hope that they can get it right.
And for Joe, for the councilman, I mean, obviously this is far from your district, but I did want to ask specifically, I've seen some discussion in the chat about the fast ferry. Any update on that, on either the South or West Shore? What's happening there?
The issue is bathymetry, which is a fun word that you don't really hear in too often, but it's the study of the underwater properties of the ocean, that most of the South Shore is incapable of getting a ferry because of the dredging that would be required monthly and annually to get it done. There are spots we're looking at. They don't have parking alongside of it. And if you don't have parking on Staten Island, you're not going to have a fast ferry. So we're still pushing for it. The mayor's not interested anymore in it. You know, the ferry system is not doing as well as it probably should system-wide. But I want to go back to Charles Fall, because, again, just my point before about secession was highlighted so perfectly by Charles. Charles is the man that the North Shore of Staten Island elected to make decisions for them. He does not believe that the R7 zoning might be right for St. George. We have to hope and pray that an unelected bunch of people who don't live in Staten Island, don't care about Staten Island, have interests that are averse to what the majority of people who elected Charles Fall believe. We have to worry about them superseding Charles, again, who was elected. Charles was elected because he was the chief of staff at the Parks Department. So he's a guy with government experience. And now he's saying that Cromwell Center can't be built. We've been delayed for the entire de Blasio administration, not one bit of movement on Cromwell Center. Well, again, going back to secession, I think someone like Charles Fall would be better able to do things for Staten Island than us hoping and praying for an agency. So fast ferry is awesome. I mean, I would love to get it someday. I'm not too sure it's going to happen with this current administration. I'm not sure it's going to happen with the current financial climate. You know, the finances of the city are just not well. I mean, there's not really much debate there. The big priority for me was property tax reform, and we had a lot of bipartisan support for reforming the property tax system. The reform is the word we use, but we were hoping for some sort of relief. I don't think the relief really happens given the current financial condition of the city. So we're in a tough boat, and it's unfortunate.
Jeff, can I just add to the fast ferry point? I think Joe's general point should be taken, and that is, given the financial situation in the city, all plans are sort of up in the air, and so you can't really promise anything. We've already seen it delayed, but prior to COVID, the city was on track for the North Shore Fast Ferry. It's scheduled for 2021 now. I talked to James Patchett, the EDC president. Well, we talk about a lot of things. These days we're talking every other day, seemingly. But the plans are still in place. The intent is still there. The thing that stops that from happening is, you know, if we're staring at multi-billion-dollar budgets. But my hope is, and the mayor wants to get this done. We want it, frankly, part of our legacy, considering how hard we fought for it. So I still have cautious optimism that we'll get a fast ferry done on the North Shore. But Joe nailed the reasons why the South Shore and the West Shore is so difficult.
And I also got to say, a council member, if the succession plan does happen, we got to make sure that Linda Riccadone is considered for Parks Commissioner.
Amen.
I like the flattery to those listening. This is good. And I just want to have a quick question. Councilman, what was that word again about the dredging?
Bathymetry, BATHYMETRY.
Fantastic. I'm learning things. I'm learning a lot politically today, but now I'm also learning something grammatically. Look, final question. A lot of us have been wondering about it. I've seen that it's even been talked about by some mayoral candidates paying attention to Staten Island. The Staten Island Yankees. Seems like the Yankees dropped one of their minor league affiliates like a hot potato from what I can see. Beep, I know you've been leading on this. What's the latest? Is there going to be baseball in that ballpark next year?
We're trying to make that happen. Still don't know, frankly. So Major League Baseball's arrangement with minor league baseball expired on September 30th. And Major League Baseball teams like the New York Yankees had to go down to 4 affiliates. They had 7 in America, 2 in the DR. And they had to make a difficult choice, and they made a business choice. They didn't let sentimentality be part of it, and there are more successful affiliates. And that was the writing on the wall. We didn't want that to happen. I would, as a Met fan, I can still say I'd much rather have the Staten Island Yankees in baseball being played at that stadium affiliated with one of the best brands in all of sports. That's not going to happen. We have an opportunity, perhaps, to bring an Atlantic team franchise to that stadium. We are working on it. Some of this now depends, the ball, to mix my sports metaphors, the ball is in the Staten Island Yankees court to the extent that they have to figure out what they want. Do they want to be part of this Atlantic League that we're trying to make happen? Are they going to sue Major League Baseball? Are they going to use a provision in this lease to kind of hold this situation in limbo for a year? We don't know the answer to that. I will close with this, and I think this is the most important part. This is about more than baseball. This is about an investment in that corridor that, as you said, has had some really big projects take some body blows. Out of this angst, now that we have the attention of Bill de Blasio, who is a baseball fan, happens to like minor league baseball, now that we have the attention of James Patchett, now that we have folks I can't really talk about who are expressing an interest in the stadium in non-baseball functions. Now that we have all of this buzz, out of this angst, we have to come and get an arrangement where we have a stadium that's used around the year that is a bigger part of the Staten Island community. Heretofore, that stadium has not been a success because it hasn't been used. It hasn't been part of the community. It sits there underutilized. Out of all of this agita, as they say in the home country, we have to get this stadium brought to life and be insinuated into the lives of all Staten Islanders. That's what we're working on. If I didn't mention it before, I got 407 days to get that shit done.
Yeah, and I mean, on that point, Assemblyman, I know this is your district. I'm wondering if you could give Jimmy the keys to the fields. Maybe he could throw some, pick up wiffle ball games, whatever.
Jeff, who's to say that I haven't once or twice jumped the fence and run the bases? If you want to do a DNA sample on the soil on some pants, who's to say? I hope there's no video, but then again, I don't have any more elections. And these days, that video would go viral. I probably could get elected mayor.
I'm a reporter. This sounds like I need to do some digging at the ballpark. This sounds great. But hey, everybody who joined today, I want to thank you. I also want to thank our sponsors again: TD Bank, Northwell Health, the Richmond University Medical Center, and Casandra Properties. Thanks for supporting City and State and a post-COVID Staten Island. Guys, if you liked this, City and State has a number of upcoming events. Next Tuesday, we have a New York nonprofit checkup webinar. That's free. You can find the details in the chat if you're involved at all in the nonprofit world. Next Thursday, tomorrow, in fact, we have a AARP webinar focused on Nassau County. So if anybody in this, isn't from Staten Island and happens to be from Long Island, check that out. And Tuesday, December 8th, applicable to everybody, we've got the Transportation in New York webinar. That's also free. You can find the details in the chat. And I promise we'll be talking more about busways and ferries and, you know, extending the R train to Staten Island, everything else. It'll be great. So most of all, thank you to our three panelists for joining: Councilman Joe Borelli, Borough President Jimmy Oddo, and Assemblyman Charles Fall. This was a great discussion, and I really appreciate you talking, and to all, you know, 200 of you who joined in for this discussion today. So thanks for joining us.
Fall for mayor of Staten Island. Joe Borelli for mayor of Staten Island. Andy,
I agree with you, Jimmy. I saw more concerts at MCU Park than anything at Staten Island Yankee Stadium. I'm not a baseball fan, but like, it's right on the money. We need more than that.
Can you imagine the mayoral press conferences if Andy Lanza is the mayor of Staten Island? For that alone, we should endorse him right here and now.
Jeff, if I may, I do 100% support the borough president's comments were about the stadium, and I also think, you know, we got to think about a worst case scenario if that doesn't work out. You know, we got to make sure that that stadium is active. And I also lastly want to just let everybody know that my office still has a lot of PPEs, masks, and hand sanitizer. If you need it, let us know. And I want to really give a big shout out to my staff, all the work that they've done with the mobile offices and being out there in the community and giving out these masks and hand sanitizer. And thank you again, Jeff, and thank you, VP Oddo and Councilmember Borelli as well.
We're good. Thanks for your comments.
And great facial hair, all of you.